podcast focused on trends shaping the future of manufacturing. I'm Alexandria Burek, your host, here with A.W. Schultz, two thought leaders with a passion for people and manufacturing. Today and every episode, we are diving deep into the advancements, sustainable practices, and dynamic changes transforming how we produce everything.
And now welcome Alexandria Burek and A.W. Schultz.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Factory of the Future. I'm here with A.W. Schultz. I'm Alexandria Burek. And today we are traveling back to the 90s, special place in my heart as a 90s baby. And so AW is going to tell us a little bit about what was hot and happening in the manufacturing space during the 90s when I was learning about life. And then we'll wrap it up with then versus now, kind of comparing what was going on in the manufacturing space in the 90s to what's happening today and what we think the future will hold. So AW, take us back to the 90s.
Well, the 90s, I can remember. I was a teenager then, and that was the foundation where probably led me to where I am today, talking about manufacturing. Because I got my first job working on an assembly line where my job was to count lasagna sticks up to 10 and put them in a box. Since then, that's been completely automated out, sent out, and it's done through automation up today. But that was my first job, and somehow I stuck it out, and they kept on moving me around, and then before you know it, I'm off to college, and the rest is history, I guess, where we're going with that.
Oh, I love that story. That's great. And honestly, maybe hopefully that gives the listeners a little bit of personal touch, and maybe it lessens the blows when we talk about our excitement about AI and automation and robotics, because your literal first job has now been automated out of the market thanks to, would you think that anybody missed that job? Let's just ask that question first before you get into.
It was so boring. My only job was to count to 10 all day long. And as a teenager, a young boy, I got lots of things in my mind.
So what you're saying is there may have been 9, there might have been 11.
Yeah.
Count your blessings if you were the 11 lasagna box. Yeah.
I sometimes had trouble counting to 10.
Yeah, I wouldn't have cut it in that for sure. Okay, so what was hot in the 90s, AW? You had some interesting and really exciting stuff to share about what was hot, so lay it on us.
Well, if you remember, I'm sorry, I'm going to jump around. It was the tech boom. So
yep.
While we were talking in the 1980s about the introduction of microprocessors and circuit boards and other things, it really took off in the 90s, especially with the introduction of phones and the World Wide Web, and now everybody wants their own PC. I remember my senior year in high school, that was when I first got my first email address and actually played on a computer that wasn't a Nintendo. And Nintendo was big then too in the 1990s. I think there's Mario Brothers. But there's a lot within the manufacturing community as far as some of the key changes was the improved in a strong economy. So things were starting to lift up. The automation and lean practices were being introduced. And if I remember correctly, this is around the same time Motorola came out with Six Sigma, and
really?
It was either late 90s or late 80s or 90s, but that kind of led the way, and of course GE became kind of the poster person of that kind of process improvement. So those are some of the things that were starting to take hold. So while we were pushing to get things out the door, there also became a point that, there's some waste out there that we could clean up and be more profitable with that. and
Yeah.
very strong organizations, they took it into account.
I want to add too, for those of you who aren't internet buffs, the dial-up internet actually came out commercially out into the home in the early 90s. What I found is it late 80s, but 90s is when most people first experienced dial-up internet, which is fun. The wild west of the World Wide Web, right? But I have to ask you, there is one really key piece of technology that came out in the 90s that I think is incredibly relevant to today. So can you share what that might be for the audience so that way we could talk about that? Because I was really excited that you brought that to the table.
Yeah, your little cliffhanger you brought into that. It was called Enterprise Resource Planning, or as you might refer to as ERP.
ERP.
And if you're in the manufacturing industry, you've got something like this, because any mid to large companies, they have to have a way of talking between finance, HR, manufacturing, supply chain, and for me today, it's if that goes down, your facilities are usually pretty idle for a little bit. And it's a game changer. And for me, as a personal note, I've been part of launching some of these at a few facilities, and there's a lot of stories out there where there's been failures. In fact, when we talk about Industrial 4.0, some of the biggest failures as far as when technology is launched is those that do ERP. And quick story.
Yeah, no, please.
One of the biggest energy companies, which is on the East Coast, they were launching a new version of their ERP, and it's when I did research on this for another story, it holds a record for one of the biggest failures of all time, costing the company millions of dollars a day. This is a huge billion-dollar company. And I happened to be sharing this with a friend of mine, and I was saying, "You work there, like this? Do you know anything about
this?" Affected you, yeah.
And she goes, "Yeah, I know about it. In fact, the guy still works there." And I just like, "Are you serious?" He was like, $1 million a day.
What are in your experience, research, and kind of networking and discussions, what do you think are the biggest? Well, firstly, I guess for anybody not listening, an ERP is basically the sole source of information that drives any manufacturing business. It's where the payables and receivables sit. It's where your payroll is recorded. It basically is your financial engine of your business. And people who use ERP in an advanced way would do some SIOP, which is like sales, inventory, and planning, I believe, operations and planning. So looking at the historical sales data, looking at inventory levels, looking at purchasing, and making sure that you're using kind of that forecasted model to determine, what you're buying, when you're buying it, and how you're manufacturing it. What, you're doing your workforce planning in the ERP basically. So if anybody didn't know what it was, that's basically what it is in a nutshell. And a lot of times ERPs will tie into maintenance management software programs. So then there's POs being issued and it ties back in, and there's a way of tracking basically what people are purchasing with the expenses and da. I think my opinion is the biggest failures with ERP launch is sloppy data, sloppy accounts, not well-defined sub-accounts. And I am not an accounting person, just for the record. I hate accounting. It's not my style. It's not my brain. However, that lack of thought and planning will deteriorate any useful information that you'd possibly get out of an ERP and completely diminish the company's ability to leverage all of the data sitting in the ERP that could really advance their business. So like the ERP is so critical to a manufacturing business. So, but what are some of your biggest failures or faux pas that you've seen in these ERP launches, and what are some of the, gold standards that people should think about?
Yeah. Well, some of the biggest failures have been when they don't have someone that's got control over it. Because if HR isn't bought in and supply chain is trying to get things working, your IP system's not working. And if one department isn't taking it seriously, that's kind of been where it's been the big generation of it. It comes down to communication things and having everyone involved. Everybody has to be involved. Where I had success on it, and I think we were pretty successful. We pulled resources nationally, and we had people monitoring every step of it for months. And we were having daily meetings, just checking out to make sure things were working. People knew how to do their jobs, because there's a whole lot of information that has to be changed in the process of going from, paper and pencil and that old Excel to automation, or to an ERP, because it's a new technology in a lot of cases. At least it was for mine. We were using SAP. And anybody that's used that before, it's a little bit different language until you get used to it.
Learning the report numbers and all that stuff is just, I don't know why that honestly, if anybody from SAP is listening, please consider just making it common sense language instead of a series of letters and numbers that people are supposed to translate into useful reports. That would be a highly recommended and super big request. So really just an incredible amount of attention to detail and long-term management of the adoption of the ERP is what people should really plan for if they're thinking about that. Okay, now going back to, I guess, the 90s, and that was the whole point of this episode. But I really can't stress the importance of ERP, and I think that's such an important part of manufacturing today. So diving into the then versus now, manufacturing jobs were hovering between 17 and 18 million compared to today, when we're somewhere in the 12 million range, near 13. So about a 4 or 5 million job loss from then to now. Again, not much different from the previous episode in the 80s. We're still today focused on the advanced manufacturing today, whereas back in the 90s, we were more focused on things like steel machinery and doing those types of things. Still the food processing, that stuff was still very big. Manufacturing was dominant in most regions and states, so it wasn't something that had been uncommon, and it provided people an ability to live a solid middle class lifestyle. Companies still had the attitude of providing loyalty rewards, and I think that has unfortunately, in today's era, companies have moved away from that attitude. I think every year there's just less and less benefits offered to employees, and more is put on to them to foot the bill for. But what do you got?
Well, one of the things that just resonated for me is I alluded to Six Sigma coming into the 90s and the lean concept. And I remember growing up, my dad was very big on Toyota because he thought that they had great quality, which they did.
Yeah.
But the U.S. automakers had to change their perspectives because they had to compete with Toyota, because they were delivering a much better product.
Yeah.
And Six Sigma kind of drove some of these process improvements within these manufacturing. So today you see pretty well balanced quality products coming out from both sides of it. And I think that was one of the, I don't know if we saw that in the 90s, but certainly we see that today in vehicles. I mean, I'm somebody that rents a lot of vehicles, and I can tell you that they all run pretty good. They all run pretty well. I mean, there's some luxury items that certainly can. Well, there's a difference between luxury and quality, and the quality has definitely improved over the years in the U.S.
So I think that's a great ad. And I think for anybody who's not necessarily thinking about quality perspective, I think lean drives that quality, like you mentioned. And, without lean, we wouldn't have this consistency and this, kind of leveling up of manufacturing standards that we experience today and probably take for granted to a certain degree. As you were mentioning that, I was interested to know how many people are Lean Six Sigma certified in the workforce today. So it shares that there were about 1.4 million people in the U.S. that hold some sort of Lean Six Sigma certification,
but there's no governing body that oversees the certification, so that might be a hard number to get. Because it seems, well, like for example, I was able to get certified through my company. I'm a green belt certified Lean Six Sigma professional. That's not through the I think it's called I just saw it somewhere. MCSI, is that what it is? Pure Lean Certifications from the Lean Certification Alliance. So you can go through there to get Lean certified. And there's about 8,000 combined members. But there is no total count that exists because like I said, there's some people who are getting very formal certificates. There's people who are getting informal certificates. I think if you're interested in it, like I operate a lot of my house in Lean Six Sigma methodology. Like I keep things ergonomically close to where I'm doing them, and I shadow box because I don't want to have to be looking for things, et cetera, et cetera. And so, lean is not just for the factory floor. It can also be really, really valuable for your house. So highly recommend looking into that if you're just interested in being more organized. Alexandria, I disagree. And if you do it, you got to make sure your wife knows you're going to be doing it. Because it'll make her mad when you start moving, try to shadow box the kitchen.
Well, maybe start with your closet or start with your side of the bathroom and, show her the benefits would be my recommendation. But funny enough, I think I would be the one lean Six Sigmaing the house, and my husband would have to just work with me on that and stick to it. That I'll set the process, you follow it. Yeah. There's a very good friend of mine, her and her husband are both consultants, and they live their life in a very corporate way in a certain sense. And they, when I first went to their house, they said, I'm the process owner of the dishwasher, so I own that process. And they had process owners for different household things. So talking about bringing business concepts into the home, that's just super nerdy, but that's us folks who just love these concepts and see the value in them. So
we're clocking out like finished goods. Goodbye.
See you guys.
This is Factory the Future, and we are out of here like finished goods. Stay tuned for our next episode of Factory of the Future, where we're exploring groundbreaking techniques and behaviors that are reshaping industrial landscapes. Don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review and help others discover the cutting-edge insights transforming manufacturing as we know it.